Can I edit? Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can edit. I think I probably should. Yeah, a lot of people are like, obviously it was you, but I guess not everybody thought that. So, okay, let's now for something completely different. Let's take a look at the Quilt Museum. Okay, so this is my monitor, but I'm not looking down at that. I'm looking at this. You want to go outside and see the front? I think we should do that. So, remember, this is the first time out for this. If you just came in, I don't have a selfie stick, but I have like a tripod thing with a grip. I'm using an external camera. If it's shaky, well, it won't be like I'm doing it like this. That would be bad, and I knew it would be, so I was like, I gotta figure out something else. This is the first try. Okay. Hey everybody who's coming in. We're at the Iowa Quilt Museum, and we're gonna take a look at the exhibit that's up here, and part of what this is practice for QuiltCon, so that we can, hang on, let me do something. Let me get this ready. So we can live stream fun. Oh, I didn't sleep. I slept like 5 hours last night. I don't know if you can tell, probably. So we can do some stuff at QuiltCon. It's too bad there's not like an audio feature to the chat so I can hear what you're saying. Let me see. So we're outside. They do yoga upstairs. The yoga classes meet upstairs in the museum. So the museum doesn't open until 10, but since yoga is out there or up there, I'm not locked out right now, which I could totally see happening, but that's not it. Okay, so there, oh gosh, this is where I grew up. I mean, not on the town square, but this is Winterset. Hey, Kelly. Could the camera be turned horizontally? Okay, Word and Bird Nerd, excellent note. If Susan, or maybe if you're around, like if you see a note, like suggestions from people, could somebody jot them down? Like, Susan, I'll elect you, so not everybody, is doing it and wasting time for everybody to write it. But if Susan, if you could jot down like things that people suggest, that would be awesome. Hey Kelly, so Word and Bird Nerd saying, could the camera be turned horizontally? Yeah, the answer is yes, but the program that I'm using, you can't do it midstream. You have to choose. So I'll try, like I'll do another test with it turned differently. It's kind of blowing out. Okay, that's the courthouse. That's the courthouse. And at the Covered Bridge Festival, every year, they're doing a lot of work on it, obviously. I used to sing in jazz choir, up on the courthouse steps, And the Covered Bridge Festival here is really great. Okay, we're gonna go back into the museum in just a second. And I think I can flip my camera, but I probably can't. Oh, I can turn this though. Oh yeah, okay. Oh yeah, this is all, oh see, this is what I got going on. All right, so that's John Wayne Drive. Yeah, I don't know Word and Bird Nerd either, I'm not sure. So anyway, I don't know if you can see it. That's John Wayne Drive. The main street. Okay, Ben Franklin. That's where I got all my candy and my Teen Beat magazines, and yeah, okay, so maybe we'll do another tour at some point. But this is the Iowa Quilt Museum. Okay, let's see. And this is the old J.C. Penney. Yeah, okay, good. I hope that it's, oh man, I gotta figure out how to hold this the right way. It's the old J.C. Penney. So, TMI, but that's where I got my first bra. Training bra was upstairs, I remember. And but now it's the Quilt Museum, and it's so beautiful inside and exciting that it exists at all. So as you walk in, you've got the gift shop, which is a really good gift shop. That's one thing that the Iowa Quilt Museum and the International Quilt Museum have in common. They both have really good gift shops. Okay, so you come in here and let's exit through the gift shop. Let's do that at the end. Okay, so happy Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day show on Monday is absolutely going forward as planned. I will be back in Chicago, and that'll be just fine. So here's the entrance to the museum, and actually I'm going to go back and I'm going to show you this book. This is the book for the exhibit, and it's called Deeds Not Words. And take it out of the thing so you can see it without the plastic. And the exhibit, Deeds Not Words, celebrating 100 years of women's suffrage. And the curators there are Sandra Sider. We've looked at material that she has been involved with before. I can't think what at this very moment, but we have, and Pamela Weeks is the curator for the New England Quilt Museum, and she is, I don't know, she's one of my favorite people I've ever met in the quilt industry. She's really great. Or the quilt system. The quilt system. Okay, so Deeds Not Words. And here we go. So I don't know. Let's see what this is about. Oh, well, and you all saw the museum from the back, but let me just give you a sense of the place. I mean, this is a world-class thing. Hey, Brendan. This is like a world-class joint, you know, in the middle of Iowa. It's so beautiful. So, and we're going to see everything. So, and that's the stairs up there, and that mezzanine, that's where I got my training bra. I remember it was pink. I never loved anything more in my life than that. Oh, wow, Ruby, you live in Italy. That is so cool. That is so very cool. I took Italian in college, and I was making plays in the theater department, and I did not learn Italian. But it was really fun while we did it. So that's really cool that you live there. So this quilt is by Hollis Chatelaine. Okay, we got to talk about Hollis Chatelaine at some point. What I'll do is I'll show you the quilt while I read the stuff. How about that? Oh wow, it's like, okay, let me just see. Hollis Chatelaine, this is like classic Hollis Chatelaine, which is this extremely detailed thread painting. Really incredible stuff. So Federation Gertie. Gertrude Weil was a mover and shaker her entire life. Unafraid to voice her opinion, she followed in her mother's footsteps in fighting for social welfare at an early age. She continued working for change until she died. Educated in the North at progressive schools, she chose to return south to her beloved Goldsboro, North Carolina. Getting further and further back from this, but my eyes are working. She went back to North Carolina after finishing college. Once home, Gertrude earned the nickname Federation Gertie. Let me just get this straight for you all. For her passion for civic reform. She fought tirelessly for women's rights, labor reform, and desegregation. This piece is dye painted on cotton with thickened dyes. Interesting. I don't know what that is. Thickened dyes. Maybe one of you knows what that is. I mean, it sounds kind of obvious, but I wonder what it's thickened with. And then machine quilted with hundreds of different colors of thread. And Hollis says, I created a warm gray as the base because it looked like the old photos that inspired me. Wow. Yeah, we do have to cherish the right to vote, Marianne. Hey, little bird stitch. You all, hang on one second. I have a tangle in my cord, so I need to adjust that. So hang on one second. This is not going to be like super exciting. 1 minute. Okay, get that ready like that. You know, I have to say, like, we're doing this, we're doing that. I don't want to make you dizzy, but I got to do this part. So far, like, I don't know. I think the tour live stream from the phone is a success. Okay, hang on one second. Get this thing untangled. It will be well worth the effort to do this right now. Okay. Of all the things that have been hard this week, I'm excited this is not one of them so far. Knock on wood. I mean, there's wood right here, so I'm just gonna like knock. Okay, almost done. Sorry, I do not want to unplug the camera to do this because I feel like that would be a very bad choice because then the phone would be very sad and confused and we would have trouble. Okay, I think I got it now. Make this really straight on. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. All right. Okay, so that's amazing. And here, and then there's an old sewing machine here at the the entrance to the museum, and I can read more about that. Oh yeah, look at that. I haven't really seen that. That's the history of 68 East Court Avenue, which is this building. Awesome. Okay, let's go over here. Here's, oh boy, hang on, okay, hang on, okay, so that's an old sewing machine, obviously, a featherweight. I don't know if it's a featherweight or not, but it's old school for sure. Okay, tour de force. This is by Hope Wilmarth. And it says, because history is important to me. So yeah, okay. So I realized with Hollis Chatelaine that the artists are writing the text for the museum pieces, or for the art, and that's not always the case. So it's cool that the artists themselves wrote this. So Hope Wilmarth says, because history is important to me, I chose to write about it as my celebration of the 100th year of women's suffrage. I especially hope that the words on the quilt will be read by my grandchildren, who have a legacy of strong, independent women as role models. The words of the 19th Amendment, a grand tour de force, are brushed onto parchment-like cloth, in the midst of which stands the silhouette of a representational suffragette of the era. Here. How about these eyeballs reading that copy from this far away? It's exciting. To her right, she looks at a timeline of events written in small black letters. The timeline begins with the 1776 plea from Abigail Adams to her husband to, quote, remember the ladies, when writing the Declaration of Independence. The timeline ends with the ratification of the amendment in 1920. Behind the suffragette, written in small black letters, are names of suffragettes on whose shoulders I stand. Wow, that gives me some chills. Women have made an impact on the ballot box since 1920. Our voices can and will be heard if we choose to continue to walk the path paved by the brave women who came before us. It's called Tour de Force by Hope Wilmarth. Okay, whoa, this is crazy. This is really, whew. So this is called Grimke Sisters. Grimke Sisters. It's made by Shin-Hee Lin. Hey, M. Hicks. It's great to see you. I'm so glad you're here. Stephanie Cake, isn't it pretty? I know, it's so great. There's such wonderful quilts in this exhibit. And by the way, I don't think I mentioned, it has toured for 2 years. And so it's a touring exhibit. So, if you know a quilt museum in your area, it's something that you can, or a quilt museum or any, it's gettable, this exhibit. So maybe there's a place for it in a community near you. Okay. My work portrays the courage and humanity of the Grimke sisters, who are considered the first American female advocates of abolition and women's rights. Sorry, I'm gonna try to get back here. Whoop. Okay. Oh yeah, there we go. Though born into a slaveholding family in South Carolina, the two sisters, Sarah M. Grimke, born in 1792, and Angela Grimke, born around the same time, dedicated their entire lives through lectures and education to address the injustice. Let's get a close up of this. To address the injustice of enslavement and women's subjugation. They are credited as seeing the women's rights issue as a human rights issue. My work, the Grimke Sisters, attempts to highlight women's independence and creativity that refuse to be restricted by old customs, prejudice, and discrimination. I think some of these texts are pretty long, and the longer they get, the smaller the text is. So I'm not sure that that's going to be the best in the book. You can certainly read all of that, I think, because while I'm reading, I can't see what you're seeing, and that's why we're getting some of the, like, cool, glad I can see half of the quilt, maybe, because I'm going to get used to this, but I'm not used to it just yet. So I'll give you the, the gist of of what these quilts are about and obviously who made them, and then kind of go through that way. I think that's going to be more pleasant for you, to be honest. Okay, this is called She Refused to Walk Behind. And I think you can kind of tell the scale of these works, but in case, this is 35 by 40. So this is made by Alice Beasley. And she writes, in the build-up to the celebration of the centennial of the 19th Amendment, it is important to place the suffragette movement within the context of this nation's troubled history of racism. The truth is that while fighting for the noble cause of women's right to vote, many suffragettes, including stars such as Elizabeth Cady Stanton, nevertheless found themselves fully aligned with the racism of Jim Crow that gripped the nation following the Civil War. My quilt depicts one incident in this lesser-known battle within the suffragette movement involving Black civil rights activist and journalist Ida B. Wells. Wells was already a national figure and a journalist, famous for her courageous anti-lynching campaigns. When she traveled to Washington, D.C. in 1913 to join the suffrage parade being organized by the leading suffrage association, arriving with a delegation of members from Chicago, Wells was told by the head of the Illinois delegation that the national organization wanted, quote, to keep the delegation entirely white, unquote. Wow, that's a direct quote. To keep the delegation entirely white. All Black delegates, including Wells, were to walk at the end of the parade, behind the men, in a separate colored section, quote unquote. Wells refused. Instead of going to the back with the other African Americans, Wells waited with spectators as the parade was underway and stepped into the white Chicago delegation as they passed by. This was not Wells's first refusal to accept the place assigned to her by white society. In 1884, she sued a railroad line when they dragged her from the first-class ladies' car, oh my God, refusing to ride in the smoking car even though she had a first-class ticket. 70 years before Rosa Parks, she won her case in the trial court only to have it reversed by the Tennessee Supreme Court. Wow. Yeah, it is great. It's amazing. I mean, look at this, sorry. While I was reading, I couldn't see that. I mean, that's obviously, we're seeing them from the back, and that was apparent, but the banner, from the back, and then that's incredible. So that's, again, Alice Beasley. She refused to walk behind. I read all of that because, we're reading all about Ida B. Wells, always. Okay, so let's see this. And for people who just came in, I kind of gave an overview of the Iowa Quilt Museum. The Iowa Quilt Museum is not a collecting museum. They're an exhibiting museum. So they don't have a permanent collection. I mean, not yet. It's not quite. The JCPenney isn't quite big enough for that. Okay, but it's so wonderful. And Mom was really involved in getting this thing going. Many people were. But these are movable walls, so they can arrange things how they need. So it's really, really cool. Okay. Oh yeah, and there's that work we saw on that wall. Pretty awesome. Hey, the other Mary Kate. Oh, it's so good to see you. That's awesome. Okay, Belva Lockwood made this piece. Oh, it's hung lower. I'm so excited. Sorry. This is called Belva Lockwood. The name of this piece is Belva Lockwood, and Jill Kurtula is the artist. During Hillary Clinton's run for president in 2016, I saw mention that she was not actually the first woman to run for president. Whoa, that's amazing. I didn't know that. And in 1884, at the age of 53, before women had the right to vote, oh my God, this is wild. Belva Lockwood ran a nationwide campaign as a presidential candidate for the Equal Rights Party. There was an Equal Rights Party? Okay, that's crazy and amazing. As she said in one interview, quote, I cannot vote. Wow, sorry. I cannot vote, but I can be voted for. Woo! That's amazing. That's amazing. That's pretty badass. I mean, you gotta admit. Okay. Wow. Okay. So she is super cool. Okay. As the first woman allowed to practice at the bar of the Supreme Court, she knew the constitutionality of her endeavor. Oh my God. The Equal Rights Party, I'm skimming a little bit, because I mean everyone needs to read about Belva Lockwood. The Equal Rights Party was formed by a group of disillusioned people with lack of support the women's rights were receiving from the Republican Party. Lockwood's candidacy, however, was not a single issue platform, and her inclusion of many issues made her unacceptable to some in the suffragette movement, who accused her of having a campaign that merely mirrored the male candidates. Interesting. Okay, so read more about Belva Lockwood. Let me get way back so you can see the quilt, and let me just see what those bottom images. The center smaller image depicts, okay, yeah, a man hiding under her skirt and all this cool stuff. This is really cool. Our next president, Belva Lockwood. And that's spelled Belvia, but it is spelled Belva. Making a Victoria sponge. Rusty Cat, I'm so glad that that's a cake, right? I mean, over here it's called, cake, but yeah, flour all over the floor. Okay, I was right. All right, here we go. So right across from Belva Lockwood is this, Jane Addams, A Most Dangerous Woman. Okay, let's see what we got about this. This is made by Laura Wasilowski. I think I know that name. Anyway, and Laura writes, Jane Addams, who was born in 1860, is an inspiration to all who wish to make the world a better place. She was a social reformer, suffragette, feminist, pacifist, and a winner of the Nobel Peace Prize in 1931. Interesting. As co-founder of Hull House in Chicago, she focused on the needs of children, women, immigrants, and workers. Addams was a vocal fighter for the oppressed and marginalized. Look at this work. This is crazy. A cake, just a cake. Let me get really close. This is pretty amazing. And the text here is saying that Hoover, the founding director of the FBI, opened a file on Addams and called her, quote, the most dangerous woman in America. This is so badass. Like, I can't vote, but I can be voted for the most dangerous woman in America. I mean, well-behaved women rarely make history, Amazing. So this quilt is Jane Addams and a celebration of her. The text reads at the end, Jane Addams was dedicated to the betterment of humanity. Truly a most dangerous and inspiring woman. And that's by Laura Wasilowski. Cool. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, I didn't even notice a mugshot impression. I totally missed that. It's awesome. It's great. Good call. If I had the nerd sound, I would play it. Okay, so this is really cool. It's called Standing Together, and it's made by Pat Kumicic. Pat Kumicic. That's her. Pat Kumicic. Okay. This is really fun, you guys. I really like this. This is exciting. Okay. And Pat writes, I love music with lyrics that tell a story. Hang on, I gotta switch hands because I'm on the other side. She says, I love music that tells a story. For this project, I was fortunate to find a book devoted to suffragette sheet music. Wow. With songs that date back to as early as 1875. The lyrics were an eye-opener for me. When I first got involved with this project, I thought the suffragette movement was strictly about the right to vote. Me too. Nothing could be further from the truth. The battle to win the right to vote for women in the United States was hard fought not only by women but by men as well. Generations of women stood together, peacefully demanding freedom, equal rights, and emancipation for all. And there's yeah, I mean, she's talking about, learning about the scope of the movement. Really interesting. Really interesting. Okay. I've got my left hand. Okay, so here, let's go over to this part of the gallery. It's amazing. It's not a large museum, but I don't know. They get so many quilts in here every time. I don't know. It's just designed really well. We'll take a look at that one on the way out because I think that's kind of the way the flow is. Let's come over here. Every day, there's my little monitor. Okay. Everyday Women Rallying for Women's Suffrage, and this is by Ree Fagan. Okay, let's take a look here. Put that down. Oh man. Okay. It's amazing what technology can do, isn't it? Okay. Ree says, my nephew and I were playing our usual Saturday morning game of billiards. Padma says, I appreciate comments on how it's constructed briefly. Can't tell if these things are hand-painted, thread-painted applique. Totally. Some of them say that stuff, Padma, and I will absolutely read it if they have it in there. I don't think that last one had any comments about that, but totally, I'll 1000% read about technique. That's a good thing. Okay, so the author says, my nephew and I were playing on Saturday morning billiards and talking about the suffrage exhibit. While throwing around quilt ideas, I spoke of the force feeding, oh this is crazy, and jail time that some of the suffragettes endured. Sorry. He said, why don't you celebrate the women that were not militant? It sounded good to me, and Everyday Women Rallying for Suffrage was born. And you did hear that right, the force feeding and jail time. I think there's a quilt that addresses that more specifically, I think, but yeah. They went on hunger strikes, some of them, and were force-fed in certain cases. Okay. So their nephew's like, why don't you celebrate the women that were not militant? It sounded good to me, and Everyday Women Rallying for Suffrage was born. The women who ran their households, raised their children, and supported their husbands, and participated in the suffrage movement, not behind a podium, but in the audience, are unsung heroes. Interesting. And here, yeah, we do have some information on the making of this. The background of the quilt is a thread design that was enlarged. I can get really close here. That was enlarged and colored in a gradient. Next, I drew the faces, scanning them into software and placing them on top of the colored threadwork. This process created a file that was then printed digitally on cotton sateen. Free motion stitching finished it off, along with a silk tucked border. So cool. Yeah, you're loving the tour. Okay, good. So that's a good note. It's working. Oh my God. Aga Khan Workhouse is where they were jailed, says Mother Nature. Wow. I feel like there's their quilt in here about that. My mom was saying, like, did you know they force-fed, and I didn't know that. So, we haven't talked about Jane Birch Cochran much in the show yet, but we will. And she was in the Kentucky issue of Quilt Folk, and she's so cool, and her work is so great. So this next piece is by her. It's called Martha Wright by Jane Birch Cochran. You know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to read, if they have notes on the construction, I'm going to read that first so you can kind of know, what you're looking at. So, and this is like classic Jane Birch Cochran, tons of buttons and beads and embellishments. But Jane says, let's see. I appliqued with seed beads and bugle beads, and I used buttons to attach the batting and backing to the quilt top. Oh, interesting. So it's not quilted in all places. It's buttons too that are attaching things. Around the edges, I stamped a few statements about her amazing life. Oh, you know what? We did see a Jane Birch Cochran quilt when we looked at the Women of Taste book. Remember the quilt? I'm sure it was her, that she put the poems or she put the menu items in the quilt. She like stenciled the menu items. I am 99% sure that was Jane Birch Cochran, because you can see she does that like stencil thing. One of you may remember, or if one of you have the book, you may be able to know, but I'm pretty sure that that was her, and so cool. Yeah, it's really fun to have this stream going. Okay, so Martha Wright, 58 by 42. And Jane says, I chose Martha Wright as my subject because she was the sister of suffragist Lucretia Mott, interesting, who was also active in women's rights, although not as well known as Mott. I discovered that, she says her husband was a Kentuckian who he knows. She was a Quaker. Martha Wright was a Quaker, but left the Quaker religion and lived in Boston. She and her sister organized the historic, oh my God, okay. She and her sister, Lucretia Mott, right, organized the historic 1848 Seneca Falls Convention. Wow, so cool. So that's the sister. She was serving as president of the National Women's Suffrage Association when she died in 1875. Amazing. I really, really like this. Yeah, cool. Cool. Oh, this is amazing. This one is really great. Yeah, it's interesting. I think somebody mentioned, yeah, producer would be a great help. It's interesting, like, to have somebody running a camera while I'm reading or talking to something would be cool. It may or may not happen. I mean, we'll see. It's all being figured out. But I will tell you, I'm gonna read this, and then we're gonna look at the quilt, because it's really big, and I can pretty much only do this for you. What? Okay, let me just see. Hang on. Yeah, because it's so big, and I have to read the stuff. That's kind of what I can give you at the moment. But I'll do this first. Okay, this quilt it's by Alonzo Sandoval. Unsung Heroines of African American Suffrage. This quilt was inspired by my friend. Nessia Desiree Harkless, whose mother Ethel Williams Harkless was a Detroit suffragist. Internet articles disclose the awful truth that a quote-unquote white separatist attitude by suffrage leaders rendered nearly invisible black women who labored in the suffragist movement. This racism tightened its grip on the fight for women's suffrage. White women wanted the vote, but many of them did not want to include blacks in their marches. If blacks did march, it was to be at the back. This memorial quilt pays homage to each African American suffragist and their valiant efforts in helping push through the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The women included in my quilt from the list of Dr. Rosalind T. Borg Penn's works, edited by Edith May, African American women leaders in the suffrage movement. Now, when he added, I think Alonzo is a male name, but I don't know for sure, but the quilt maker added Nessia's mother to this list. So the design for my quilt takes the form of a poster or banner. The addition of stars and stripes and sewing thread in the American flag colors adds a patriotic tone. And the vinyl digital image is punctuated and allows the middle mylar layer to show through. It's pretty powerful. Rusty Cat, same racism in UK suffrage too. Yeah, it's a problem. Okay. And it says, when the ballot is put into the hands of the American woman, the world is going to get a correct estimate of the Negro woman. It will find her a tower of strength. Whew. And let me just say, it says that, because I didn't read that before because I was trying to get the big view, but it says the paraphrase text is by Nanny Helen Burroughs. Wow. Okay. Okay, so this one, nasty women. I'm now part of that number. I've been called nasty lots of times. Okay, Nasty Women Keep Fighting. This is by Sue Bleiweiss. Sue Bleiweiss. Okay, 49 by 49 inches. Although she was, hang on one second. Okay, yes. Here we go. Wah! All right. Although she was one of the most prominent figures in the history of suffrage, Elizabeth Cady Stanton's name is not one that most associate with it. Interesting. While doing my research, I came across a quote of hers. Quote, "The right is ours. Have it we must. Use it we will." Unquote. The statement really spoke to me. Who knew? Stephanie Cake says, "Who knew Elizabeth Cady Stanton talked like Yoda?" Exactly. Right is ours. Okay, I can't do it. I will not do Yoda. So the maker says this really spoke to me, and she wanted to include imagery that represented the long climb from the moment that Cady Stanton gave her speech at the Seneca Falls conference until the year that Congress finally attempted the 19th Amendment. And she talks a bit more about the Declaration of Independence, and Cady Stanton wrote the Declaration of Sentiments, and she used the Declaration of Independence sort of as a guide for that. I'm going to get close to the quilt, so this is really interesting, really high contrast, and then it's also too, I don't know if you know about the whole, hey, I'm Jenny. Cool, yeah, it's great. Maybe we should do like a tour like all over the world of quilt exhibits. But the newspapers, like classic newspaper colors are red, black, and white, and so it's interesting that she kind of used that theme. I mean, not that it's like a newspaper thing, but the color scheme of black and white with dashes of red it's just kind of like modern media colors. It really makes a statement when you use that color scheme. Okay, here we go. We're about a little over halfway. Yeah, we're about halfway through the exhibit, maybe a little bit more. Okay, so this is made by, interesting, Pixeladies. So it looks like a group, Pixeladies, and this is called Catherine Dexter McCormick, Making Her Mark. Tour the world, 1000%. If I do tour the world, I will have a crew, I promise. So this quilt, made by Pixeladies. Catherine, let me see what they used here, because this is really, really cool. To construct this quilt, we collaged words and phrases cut from magazines and newspapers, then printed the image onto cotton fabric using fiber reactive dyes. We machine stitched the quilt, adding the boa, which is printed onto silk and cotton, and cut into strips. So they created the three-dimensional effect because we think everyone should wear a boa. That's awesome. As McCormick does in the original image. Oh yeah, she wears a boa in the original image. The background shows an excerpt from her acceptance speech as a member at large of the 1911 NASA convention. So a little bit, hey Rox, I don't know if I saw you come in. So Catherine Dexter McCormick is the most compelling, multifaceted person we had never heard of before we started doing research on influential women. McCormick, one of America's great philanthropists, interesting, never sought recognition, but she deserves it. McCormick was the second woman to graduate from MIT, majoring in biology in 1904. How cool. She had the requirement that women always wear hats rescinded for the chemistry lab. That's amazing. She founded the dormitory at MIT. A lot of words. American Women's Suffrage Association, which is that NASA I mentioned. She met Margaret Sanger and supported Sanger's work on contraception. And she smuggled diaphragms into Europe. Cool. So she's talking about, women's reproductive rights. Yeah, fantastic workmanship. So there's more to read about her. I skipped a little bit because if I read too much, I'm gonna like end up doing this with the camera, and I just want to try to not do it. Okay, so let me go over here. Oh yeah, this is great. We talked about Therese May one day on the show. My mom was on the show that day, and we talked about it. Talked about her and her work. You might have remembered lots of faces in her work. I think there were some puppies and stuff that we saw. Anyway, Therese May. It was early. It's been some time ago, but we did talk about that. And so here we go. Hey, Miss Elaney. So it's called A Vote for You, and wow, look at this, really incredible. Sojourner Truth's story is a metaphor for the lives of many women today, which is the reason I interpreted her as a vibrant contemporary figure. Although her adventure unfolded, there was no voting for women. Although as her adventure unfolded, there was no voting for women, she found ways of voting for herself by walking away from slavery and finding a life of freedom, doing the work of a minister and giving lectures about women's suffrage. The Vote for You panels, bordering, this is this up here, bordering the quilt convey the message following the powerful inner guidance. Let's get real close on this. Yeah, it's astonishing. That's a great word for it. Marianne. Hold on. Convey the message of following the powerful inner guidance that Sojourner Truth inspired. The stitched words on her face are love, women's rights, save the children, loving kindness, all one, love one another, and speak your word. Walk away from slavery one step at a time can be interpreted as the encouragement to free oneself from any kind of bondage. She talked about a little bit of the inspiration. Sojourner Truth also stood up in a similar way when her son was sold back into slavery. Wow. After slavery was abolished. She walked barefoot. Let's see. She walked barefoot. Many miles to the courthouse and insisted on her son's release. Sojourner Truth was beautiful and a self-assured, heroic woman who stepped out of the worst circumstances and moved forward in life to solve extreme dilemmas. And, we saw another, her nose is a cat. Her nose is a cat. Cat nose. Cat nose. Amazing. And the crown. Yeah, that's great. So, we saw another Sojourner Truth quilt by Jean Ray Laurie. Remember, it was like that very powerful quilt, and I went talking about it for like 10 minutes and did not get small. Yeah, that was also Sojourner Truth. Ain't I a Woman was her favorite. I mean, her really famous speech. Probably one of many, but it's the one that I know about. Okay, so this one is by Sandra Sider. Okay, so one of the curators for the exhibit. And this one, is Frances Watkins Harper. And it's, sorry, let me just show you because it's Frances Walker Harper, I Speak of Wrongs. Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, born in 1825, spent her entire adult life struggling for racial equality as well as women's suffrage, with racial equality at the forefront of her efforts. And Sandra Sider says that her quilt was inspired by a speech at the 11th National Women's Rights Convention in 1866. The strength of her speech can be felt in the core sentence of the speech, quote, "We are all bound up together in one great bundle of humanity, and society cannot trample on the weakest and feeblest of its members without receiving the curse in its own soul." Whew! Unquote. Lucretia Mott, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and Susan B. Anthony also spoke at that conference, this is telling us. She was involved, Frances Watkins Harper, was also involved in the abolitionist movement, even residing for a while in an Underground Railroad station in Philadelphia. She was also a literary phenomenon, born into a free black family in Baltimore. Let me get a little bit some of this while I'm reading to you. Hey, we can turn the camera just like we would turn our heads. That says, oh, yeah, I can turn the camera, but I cannot turn my head and read that right now. So perhaps you all can read that. So she went on to become one of the most popular African-American authors of the 19th century. And the texts on the quilt, Sandra Sider says, are from Harper's own poems and speeches. Oh, and here, look at this. So this is a nerd reference here, a nerd thing. So let me see. Okay, the chat is in my way a little bit, but if you can see, the texts in the quilt are from Harper's own poems and speeches. If you look right down there at the very bottom, found in A Brighter Coming Day, edited by Frances Smith Foster. So that's where we would find some of her writing, is A Brighter Coming Day, edited by Frances Smith. Oh, it's fine. So, and that's in 1990. And the photo transferred portrait of Harper comes from the Library of Congress. That's beautiful. And it's 32 by 33. Okay. Oh, interesting. Padma, good to know. And hey, Carissa. Oh, okay. I'm going to get the, there's a link I'm going to send to you all or share with you about the Iowa Quilt Museum that Carissa, the director, wanted me to share. So, Padma, thank you for letting me know that, and I'll tell her that. She's super cool. Okay, Together, made by Joan Schultz. Ooh, we haven't talked about Joan Schultz on the show. She's a very big deal. This is super cool. I really like this. Okay. The myth of Lady Godiva riding through the town center to suspend taxes has been an inspiration for works of art by many artists since the 11th century. Wow, Lady Godiva was the 11th century. I don't think I really internalized that. That is a long time ago. Okay. Hang on. I gotta switch my hands. I really wanna... There's nowhere else to go on this one unless I change my hands. Okay. Leading the Women's Suffrage Association's parade in Washington, D.C. in 1913 was Inez Milholland Bossevane for women's right to vote. Sorry, what I'm going to do is, while I'm reading this one, I'm just going to give you detail shots and then we'll back up because it's hard to explain, but it's going to be really hard to do it otherwise. So Joan Schultz says, I began looking at some of this imagery for my quilt, how best to bring people together for the cause of women's rights. In my research, these different stories stood out, was Inez Milholland Bossevane, who rode a white horse in the women's suffrage parade. Okay, and then Lady Godiva. Towering over the marchers and parade goers, she would naturally capture people's attention and imagination, as did Lady Godiva riding naked. This Inez person is pretty awesome. I'm going to show you her name because she seems like somebody to know more about. Do you see right under Joan Schultz's name? Sorry, it's going to focus. Inez Milholland Bossevane. Not ideal, but that she was the one who was at a parade on the white horse. Okay, so Joan writes that the making of a quilt is slow work, capturing an idea, finding the right compilation of materials, creating a design, and then translating thoughts and ideas into reality can consume days and nights. Each part of the whole is important. And to keep focused, I thought about the women who, over time, have challenged each other to overcome obstacles and collectively create not only the possibility of change, but also change itself. Together, mountains are moved. Wow. Really, really cool. Give it up for Inez Milholland. Oh, nice. Your daughter's name is Inez. Sweet. Okay, here we go. Just a couple more, and then we have seen this exhibit. Okay, let me switch hands. I have never live streamed a thing. This is really fun. Okay, resistance to tyranny is obedience to God. And it's made by Adrienne Yorinks. Oh, and this is cool. So she created Renaissance to Tyranny is Obedience to God 25 years ago to celebrate the 75th anniversary of women's suffrage. Wow, so this is a really old quilt. I mean, I think that's what she's saying. The title is a quote from Susan B. Anthony. I distinctly remember days in the library calling every book and article I could find about the suffrage movement. Huh. So interesting. I was mesmerized by the strength and determination of the women participants. She talks about Seneca Falls. She's looking at, the Declaration of Sentiments, which we just read about. And she envisioned a monument in fabric to the women who sacrificed so much. She says, I used white on white fabric with the text of the Declaration printed on top to resemble, oh, here, it's down here, to resemble marble. I used vintage fabrics spanning the years of the suffrage movement to connect my photo montage. So there's the Declaration of not independence, but sentiments, yeah. And Elizabeth Cady Stanton wrote that. She says a vintage fabric that was one of her favorites is a quirky pink background fabric with a woman in green carrying a gun. Oh, here it is. That's totally great. Wow, that's cool. Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, I agree. All of these artists are worth a deeper look. So she loves this particular little lady. Pink is the predominant color because as a child I felt I was force-fed pink. It represented stereotypical feminine attributes, quote unquote. So I use pink ironically to juxtapose the girly and feminine characteristics against the powerful, brilliant, and brave attributes these women actually possessed. Let's look at the details on this are really special. So, photo transfer. And I mean, so she said she made this 25 years ago. So, that's, a date on it. There's not a date on it, actually. There's not a date on these quilts. But they're all made within the past couple years the past few years because they were made for this exhibit. Except for this one, which was made before. So 25 years ago, that's just around 2020, a little bit less. And so it's interesting because photo transfer stuff, I don't know when people started using that in quilts, but, it wasn't that much earlier than this. So I feel like she was really experimenting with photo transfer. I could be wrong. Maybe people have been using photo transfers in quilts forever, but it seems like the quilts I was around growing up, that it wasn't a lot of pictures, like photos on quilts. So that's really, really cool. Yeah, I think as I'm looking down at my my phone, I'm not sure. I think the pink is brighter in real life. I'm not sure. The color's really good, I think, using this camera, but it seems like it's a little pinker to me. It might be different for you, but okay. So this quilt, wow. Clara Foltz. And what do the green swords mean in front of the names? As soon as we're done with this one, Faith, I'll go back. Okay. So this is made by Maria Billings. And she writes, it seems to me that Clara Shortridge Foltz and I lived next to each other for a large part of the year in 2018. In June, Sandra Sider invited me to contribute an art quilt honoring Foltz, who was born in 1849, for this exhibition. She says she felt honored, but she hadn't heard about Clara Foltz, and Sandra Sider hadn't either. But she was a suffragette, and she was a suffragette. And she had a biography. There was a biography she read. And, okay, let's see. So then there's a list of things that she did. So I'm going to read this list. 1878, first lawyer admitted to the California State Bar. 1879, first female clerk for the State's Assembly Judicial Committee. Throughout the next few years, she was the first female legislative counsel. She was the first female special prosecutor. Clara Foltz was the first to propose the creation of a public defender. Whoa, that's amazing. The first woman on the State Board of Charities and Corrections, the first female deputy district attorney at age 61, and the first woman to run for governor of California, get this, at the age of 81. Whoa, that is so great. That's amazing. That's amazing. The book looks like it's coming out of the quilt. It totally does. Totally does. You know what? It is a little bit Liz D. Hi, by the way. I don't know if I said hi to you when you came in, but it is stuffed a little bit. And there's no text about the construction of this, but now that I'm looking here, there's this big stitch quilting, and and there's more stuff about her. It says survived shipwreck in the Atlantic. See the word Atlantic there. Survived a shipwreck in the Atlantic. Lifelong meeting prejudice. Oh, survived lifelong prejudice about, women lawyers. So that's Claire Foltz. The first official bad girl. Okay, well, I'm glad you're here, Liz. I'm really glad you came today. Okay, so Amelia Bloomer, Advocating a Change. And this is by Robin Schwalb. Yeah. Hey, Rhonda. I don't know if I said hi to you either. Rhonda Kernoodle. Okay. So Robin says, when I was a child, my family called girls' underpants bloomers. I can't recall that we ever mentioned or were even aware of the origin of that name. Oh my God, me neither. I know now that Amelia Jenks Bloomer was born in 1818, became associated with the women's clothing reform style known as bloomers because of her early and strong advocacy. I am dead. This is amazing. It was inspiring to learn that her work on behalf of women's rights and temperance led her to become the first woman to own, operate, and edit a newspaper for women. Whoa! It was called The Lily. Oh, I feel like I've heard of The Lily. That's so badass. Its title is commemorated in the present-day Washington Post online feature for women. Oh yeah, right. So she based this on an image from 1851 of an image of her. And the background is a repeating dictionary definition of bloomers. She silkscreened this onto subtly printed fabric, and she used a combination of applique and reverse applique, by machine using a fusible web, and then zigzag stitches around every raw edge. Okay, let me come in and get some of that. Zigzag stitching around every raw edge. Oh yeah, okay. Look at these letters, they look really good. And yeah, she sold the paper in 1854 to Mary Birdsall, and when she did, it had more than 6,000 subscribers across the country. How cool is that? And the quote here says, "Let men be compelled to wear our dress for a while, and we should soon hear them advocating a change." Yeah. Hey, thanks for following, kitten. I'm glad you're here. That's awesome. Thank you, Ruby. That's really good. I'm calling you Ruby. I can call you Marta. I should figure that out. Okay. Oh, wow. Look at this. This is great. I didn't notice this one. Okay. This is Lucy Stone, made by Susan Lentz. And Susan says, from the beginning, I knew that I wanted to create a hinged work that referenced antique daguerreotypes. Yeah. Wow. And this one's kind of tough because the stuff is down there. So, let's see. She talks a little bit about daguerreotypes and how they're made. And she says many of the suffragettes had these images made, and they're available through the Library of Congress, a source for high-resolution images in the public domain. There are 7 images of Lucy Stone in the Library of Congress. And she says, but I want to make one thing clear. I did not select Lucy Stone just because I found a high-resolution, copyright-free image of an original daguerreotype. I didn't select her because she was the first woman from Massachusetts to earn a college degree, although she says I really like that. I selected her because she refused to give up her surname upon marriage, and because she and her husband, Henry, wrote their own egalitarian wedding vows, wow, and penned a famous protest against patriarchal laws and customs governing marriage. Oh my God. Quilts, man. They teach you about the whole wide world. Lucy Stone stood against all equalities. She was an abolitionist, a great public orator, and was part of the 19th century triumvirate of women's suffrage and feminism, along with Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. And she says, the more I read about Lucy Stone, the more I knew I wanted to stitch her portrait more than any other suffragist picture. Yeah. So great. So great. Made for you by Marta. Okay, good. Marta. Okay, I'm going to say Marta. That type is crazy. Look at this. I love this. You know what? This is really neat. I mean, it's a sculpture, you know? I mean, maybe it's like, well, yeah, duh, it's a sculpture, but it really is. And I've never, ever thought of making, you know, like a quilt sculpture, but working on my quilts and fine art lecture is really opening my eyes to a lot of different things, so. Okay, there's one quilt here, and then there's something over there on the counter that we'll look at, and then I think we got it. Okay, tea box to ballot box, made by Teresa Barkley. Okay, Teresa Barkley says, I made this quilt as if it were a postage stamp commemorating the centennial of women's suffrage in 2020. Get back, okay. The design was inspired when I discovered that women's suffrage organizations used the centennial of the Boston Tea Party, interesting, in 1873 as an opportunity to demonstrate in Boston and New York City. Nice. They were like, we're gonna piggyback on that crowd. And suffragists, okay, so they were working, you know, at that time, and the Tea Party was doing its thing. Kind of backing up too far to really read that. Okay, yeah, tea box to ballot box. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, women hosted tea parties to support the right for women to vote. Tea box to ballot box depicts tea crates floating down a river from Boston. Past New York City, Trenton, and Philadelphia, ultimately arriving in Washington, D.C. Really interesting. The quilt consists of 5 horizontal bands representing the states of Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. And the bottom band represents D.C. Okay, cool. The fabric suggests the flow of water and tea, but also the flow of ideas and the flow of time. On the night of December 16, 1773, colonists threw 342 chests of tea from 3 ships in Boston Harbor in protest of a law they considered unfair. The suffragists considered this action a patriotic act, and they appealed to the public to consider their cause equally patriotic. That's cool. That's a really interesting, moment of history that they were like, we're gonna use this this historic moment and piggyback on it. And then it's also a really interesting subject matter for a quilt, the tea and the stuff. Okay, look, this is the old JCPenney. If you came in late, the Quilt Museum is in the old JCPenney here in Winterset, Iowa. Okay, so then there's this case, and it's got some things on it. This is a great museum, you all. It really, whenever you're nearby, you gotta come through. There's a little office over there. Okay, so these are let me see, this is gonna, okay, maybe this will be easy. Truth to Power. This is by Jana Cunningham and Melanie Bucock. Truth to Power honors 4 American suffragists and features the colors of the American suffrage movement. Note it was illegal to educate slaves, so Sojourner Truth never learned to read or write. This is a copy of her only known autograph. Oh my God! Whoa! Are you seeing that? Wow. Streamlabs. I need to block Streamlabs. I feel like I can't believe Streamlabs is like, what is this, a new Estelle Witherspoon? Streamlabs is the new Estelle Witherspoon. I will block Streamlabs when I get home. If I do it now, if I click on something, I'm so afraid that we're gonna lose the stream. And it's going so well. I mean, it's going pretty well, I'd say. Okay. Honor the past, change the future, by Denise Boken. And symbols include the ribbon for the suffragettes of the 1900s and the feminist sign for present activities. Voting is our voice to make change for justice and equality. And you know what? I'm wondering, I mean, these are quilts in the exhibit, but I wonder if there was I wonder, you know, because there's these series of mini quilts, so I wonder, the book will certainly say a little bit more about, you know, if there was like an invitational, or if, you know, if, I'm not quite sure. It doesn't say here, but it seems like these are all part of kind of a group, you know. Elizabeth Robinson. I love face quilts. I mean, yeah, okay. I wanted to convey, Elizabeth says, that women had to persistently march, demonstrate, and lobby legislators to amend the U.S. Constitution to be able to vote. The stars represent the 36, okay, the stars are out here on the corner. The stars represent the 36 states required for ratification. Interesting, that's great. Great. And then some ones down here. I don't know if that's going to read very well, but there's a crazy quilt. Sorry, I gotta go past a post. Crazy quilt down there. It's hard for me to see that because of my, I don't think I can read that over there. It's a suffrage crazy quilt by Tricia Millanig. And then this one, Marilyn Carr, I voted. And with the presentation of a voting sticker, Americans know they have exercised their right to select a person or idea they feel strongly about. 100 years ago, women were thought of as an extension of their husband. Without the right to vote, to express themselves freely, brave women started the suffrage movement. And in the last century, women have proven themselves to be strong leaders with a take-charge attitude. Tell me about it. I think I can get in here, and this is such a neat quilt. I don't want to miss it. Okay, so yeah, Tricia made this, Tricia Millanig. I've always wanted to make a crazy quilt. These were popular during the suffrage movement. Oh yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that. I mean, hey, crazy quilts, yeah, totally 1880s. Didn't make the connection. I love that she did that. Awesome. Okay, cool. And the double pink and black fabrics are period appropriate reproduction fabrics. Oh, neat. I also used men's ties in the quilt. Oh, that's interesting. I voted. Cool. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Stephanie Cake, the voting sticker. Imagine how valuable that would have been to a suffragette, and we take them for granted. Yeah. And, you know, getting into politics in this show is like not something I want to do, but, you know, there's a lot of voting laws getting changed, and I think it's going to be more important, you know, for everybody to just make sure, you know, we know how and what we got to do. You know, we got to protect this thing. So Sharon Resvick, I don't know, maybe if I back up you can see it. Oh yeah, that's better. Victory. A woman's silhouette is in the victory stance on a background of the colors of the National Women's Party. Purple, oh this isn't, I hadn't read this yet. Purple for loyalty, white for purity, gold for hope. Purity, eh? She doesn't say that, I said that. I quilted sunflowers on the gold for Kansas, where Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton campaign. And she's got, oh God, one block is the suffragette flag, and one is Granny's Choice. Women of today are victorious because their grandmothers and great-grandmothers fought for the cause. 1,000%. That is so good. That is so good. It's really true. We're here because of them. Okay, so I think that's it, everybody. Well, and because this is a Quilts of Valor exhibit that stays here. I'm pretty sure it's up all year round. And Quilts of Valor, we should talk about Quilts of Valor on the show at some point. Many of you maybe made a Quilt of Valor. I've made a couple. It's time. It's probably the next quilt I should make, to be honest. But that's a really special program. We can talk about it's quilts that are donated to Americans that have been touched by war. Oh, this is like so cool to go through this thing. It's like, greatest hits. Okay. Hey, I'm Jenny. I mean, it's my pleasure. This is so much fun. And now we know, how this is going to work for QuiltCon. And that's great. I'm excited about that. So yeah, so we saw the exhibit, and we'll see the one. Oh no, okay. As we go out, there's this quilt here at the back wall. Okay. Oh, and they've got like really great. Oh no. There's a little bit more. Maybe I came in backward. Okay, we have 4 more quilts. There's 4 more quilts. I'm sorry. That's good. I don't really want to leave. So, and peace, love, puppies. It's my pleasure. And if you got to go, I totally get it. But there's a little bit more. Is there anything on the mezzanine bed turning area, Fiandor? I think there may be. There's like a dollhouse up there, and I think that's what's up there. Because I was up there the other day. I think they do bed turning, like they do quilt turnings up there. I'll find out. And if it's really good, we can do this again. Okay. All right. Help, there's more. Exactly. So Sarah Bard Field, Suffrage Envoy. I'm getting a little bit dry. My throat's getting a little bit dry, but I'm not going to short shrift Martha Wolf. Sarah Bard Field honored suffragette Sarah Bard Field in her cross-country automobile journey, delivering a petition with more than 500,000 signatures supporting the Susan B. Anthony Amendment to Congress. The petition was started in 1915 by the Congressional Union for Women's Suffrage. And so this lady, on September 16th, 1915, the envoy, oh, my phone, oh no. Okay, well, that is going to make a difference. Can you see? You can't see. I just got, I have 5%. Oh yeah, see up there in the right-hand corner? See that little red thing? My phone just went dim, it dimmed, and I have 5% battery, and now it has an exclamation point on it. So you know what? If I don't say goodbye now, it will probably, that's something to think about, the battery. Okay, so there are more. Okay, let's look at them. Okay, so this is amazing. This is by Susan Charlotte, Knight of Potholders, Coins in the Kitchen. Okay, so you gotta look at that one, and then this is, oh no, it's called No Shrinking Violets by Patricia Kennedy Zaffred. And then the last one. Oh no. Vote for your favorite quilt. Oh, that's so cool. You know what? It is gonna cut out, you all, but this has been so much fun. So I'm gonna go till it cuts out. So when it cuts out, you'll know why. This is Homage to Lucy Barnes by Patricia Malarcher. This is really cool. And again, there's the book. Yeah, portable battery pack. The only thing is that this is plugged into my phone. The camera's, there's another way. I might even use like a whole different set, like a GoPro or something. There's a way. This is called First Ladies, made by Carol Breyer Fowler Gentry. She's the one that made Corona 2, that amazing quilt that we looked at that won the first Best of Show award for machine quilting. She won Best of Show at Paducah for a machine quilted quilt, and it was that big scandal. Okay. Well, this is the book, Deeds Not Words, and that's the name of the exhibit, curated by Sandra Sider and Pam Weeks. And it's just really, really cool. This has been so fun. I'm sorry I couldn't read more about those last quilts. Hey, Mom? Is my mom still there? Is my mom there? I thought I heard her voice. Is my mom? Mom, hi. It's Mary Ann Fons.
Excuse me a minute.
Sorry.
I'm on the phone.
Okay, sorry.
Just a second. Can you hold for a second, Naomi? Okay.
I am gonna run out of battery in like 2 seconds, but I heard you. Mom,
Yes.
this exhibit is awesome.
It is. Yes, I've been to yoga class and I didn't think to bring a sweater to put on, so I'm covering the gift shop, sort of with using my scarf as a...
Dressed like a trollop. But you know what? Women, they fought for our right to dress in yoga
Yeah.
yoga pants in a public place.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, everybody. I'll say goodbye, and that was so much fun, and we learned a lot about voting, but also about how to do live streaming on the show. So that's really cool. So
did you talk about how hard the men worked to keep us from having the
Yeah,
vote?
yeah.
I didn't realize it was
yeah.
that, you know.
It was pretty bad.
Pretty bad.
But we made a lot of progress.
Yes.
So, okay, everybody, I'll see you soon, and yeah, I'll
And
see
we're
ya.
out.
Okay, bye.